Chapter 2 A King's Doubt. With the closing of another day, and all of Hyrule's business well in hand, newly crowned King Facade believed that he had everything a man could want. Eating supper at a large table inside the North Palace, sitting across from his wife Zelda, whom he had been in love with since childhood, they casually conversed about the day's affairs, remarking about how much more efficiently things were going down in the southern outskirts now that Aghanim was the Lord Governor. This opened the whole new topic for the two of them to discuss, the fact that the Queen missed her cousin, Lady Miranda, and thought that they should visit sometime soon. And then Zelda remembered that she had received a petition from the people only a short time before they sat down to eat. Apparently, the subjects of Hyrule were so impressed with Link's defeat of Ganondorf that they wanted to create a holiday in his honor. Once the rolled-up petition was in hand, Facade used his ring to stamp the royal insignia onto it without hesitation, thereby signing the parchment's contents into law. "Guard, take this to the court clerk at once," the king said, holding it out to the one who was now approaching. "See that it's filed, and the word of the new holiday is spread throughout Hyrule." The guard bowed, and then ran off to complete his task, but Zelda did not seem so pleased about it. With all of the praise and rewards that the Lord Sheriff had already received, she couldn't help but question why he would need an actual holiday in his honor, especially when her husband had fought right alongside of Link, but did not receive his full share of the credit for stopping Ganondorf. "My love, I am the King of Hyrule, and known as such," Facade explained, hoping to remove the skeptical look from his wife's face. "The people will always bow and show us respect, but they need heroes as well. Link is the closest thing I have to a brother, and when our people see that a man of such common origins has been elevated by his own merit, it will inspire them to follow his example." "I understand your way of thinking, Facade," the Queen replied, using her napkin to dab the corner of her mouth after a bite. "Link and the others are heroes, that is undeniable, but the people need to look to their king for inspiration and leadership as well." The king understood what she was trying to say, and he had heard the rumors that some of the people believed that Link should have become ruler instead of him, since he had played the largest part in both rescuing Zelda and defeating Ganondorf, but that way of thinking had been quickly silenced. During the coronation, when he and Zelda had been crowned, Link, Aghanim, and Lady Miranda had all knelt down and sworn fealty to him. Now, if a king was worthy of a great hero like Link's loyalty, then who else could question it? Once the conversation was over, a kind of awkward silence fell over the room, and it lasted until the meal was over. By this time, it was getting late, so the two of them decided to get an early night, which raised Facade's spirits, since he now got to fall asleep in a gigantic, extremely comfortable bed with his arms around Zelda. It had taken a long time for her to be able to even fall asleep without a powder after her ordeal as Ganondorf's prisoner, but even after being able to do so, sometimes the nightmares still plagued her. Half asleep, the king was dimly aware of his wife tossing and turning, moving around as if struggling with some unseen enemy. He was startled awake, though, when the queen let out a frightened shriek. Zelda's eyes were open, and she continued to scream while flailing around against the blanket, and during these waking nightmares, it was surprisingly difficult to restrain her so that she couldn't inadvertently harm herself. Eventually, she stopped, blinking and looking around as if she didn't know where she was. "I was there," she exclaimed, sobbing as she buried her face into his shoulder. "Spectacle Rock. I was there again. Ganondorf had me and you couldn't find me. I was there, Facade. I was there." Zelda had more to say, but her speech had devolved into a series of tear-filled, terrified ramblings, and all Facade could do was hold her. He reassured his wife that she was safe and that Ganondorf was gone, but on nights like this, the only thing that could calm her down was a dose of their sleeping powder that had been left on the end table. As much as he wanted to continue holding her after the powder had taken effect, Facade knew that the best thing for her was to be left to sleep undisturbed, so he got out of bed, carefully tucked her in, and decided to go for a walk. Stepping out of his chambers in only his long nightshirt and cap, the king was able to see thanks to the constantly lit torches that were mounted on the stone walls of the corridor. Beyond the windows and palace walls, however, was Hyrule, and the sight of the moonlit forests and plains made him long for days when he was but an adventuring prince of Arcadia, off to save his beloved from Suddenly, Fasad's thoughts were interrupted as something flew in through the window, letting him feel the rush of air on his face as an arrow just missed him, sticking itself into the wall instead. Bringing his hand up to his face out of reflex, the king was relieved to find that he hadn't been cut by the attack, but he was frustrated when he saw no one outside after looking through the window again. The only thing he could do now was to sound the alarm, but Fasad stopped when he looked back at the arrow and saw that there was a rolled-up parchment attached to it. This seemed like an odd way to send a message to the King of Hyrule, but it was a message nonetheless, so he removed the rolled-up parchment, opened it up, and found that it was more like a full-sized letter than a simple message. There was not enough light where he was standing for him to read what it said, so Fasad walked back down the corridor so that he could hold it up by one of the torches. He had plenty of light now, and after turning so that everything was clear, he found that it said, "To His Fraudulent Majesty, King Fasad of Hyrule, I hope that you find this letter and its arrow buried deep into the heart of one of your most trusted servants, as it would spare them from having to continue serving a spineless false king like you for a day longer. All of Hyrule knows the truth about what happened during the rescue of your queen 5 years ago. You did almost nothing while Link defeated both Darknut the Unyielding and Ganondorf. You do not deserve to be the king of Hyrule, and you only yet live because Darknut was struck by a lucky blow after his strength was drained from fighting Link. I would hold no grudge if it were he that assumed the throne, but you! You are a disgrace to both this kingdom and your homeland of Arcadia, and to that end I challenge you to a duel to the death, where your honor and skill will be tested for all to see. Come to King's Cross, and there you and I will face each other alone on even ground. I shall wait for you as long as it takes for you to muster the courage, but the longer I have to wait, the more I shall spread word of your cowardice. Make no mistake, Fasad, my family will be avenged, and after you die by my hand, maybe my brother, Darknut, will finally be able to rest in peace. Impatiently yours, Rebenak the Unyielding." No matter what he thought of the name Rebenak, Fasad found himself growing angry at the written words, mostly because they were needless slander about his encounters with Darknut. The king clearly remembered his first encounter with the armored knight at Manji Estate, and although the fight had been grueling, Fasad had emerged the winner after dealing what he thought was a mortal blow. The armored knight reappeared during the assault on Spectacle Rock, and he was shortly killed thereafter, but it was through the combined efforts of himself and Link. For the longest time, Fasad just stared at the letter, feeling himself growing angrier with each passing second. How dare this person disrespect their king in such a way? How dare they act like their traitorous brother was even worth avenging in the first place? Darknut had been Ganondorf's partner, and he had met a gruesome death, as was the preferable fate of all traitors. Still, a challenge was a challenge, but how would the people of Hyrule view the acceptance of such terms? Situations like these were one of the most frustrating parts of being king, and this one was particularly bad given that he could be viewed as a coward if he declined. Rebenak's claims could also be seen as legitimate if he accepted, so he honestly didn't know what he should do. Well, when the king was uncertain, the best thing to do was to call for an advisor, so Fasad rushed back to his chambers, sat down at the desk, and in the candlelight began to write his own letter on parchment. To Lord Governor Aghanim of the Southern Outskirts Province, my dearest friend, I write to you in urgency, as I am in need of your wise and impartial counsel in a delicate matter. While I wish to say nothing else in this letter, I ask that you and Lady Miranda come immediately to the North Palace so that she can be of comfort to my dear Zelda, and so that you and I may discuss this matter in private. Sincerely, King Fasad of Hyrule. Once finished with the letter, he sealed it, and then called for a guard just as he had done with the petition, giving him orders to see it to Snake Palace in the southern outskirts at once. The guard bowed before leaving, and now Fasad felt a little better. Yes, now he would simply forget about the matter until Aghanim arrived, and after blowing out the candle, the king returned to more important matters, like making sure that Zelda was taken care of.